So, in case you have not been following, the path to Kamala Harris' victory as the next president of the United States just got clearer and clearer. Yes, my name is Oluwasegun Ajayi. Welcome again to Political News on Teptv. For the next few minutes, I'll be running you through how it appears like America would finally be having the first female president who is not white, a black female president for the first time in America's history. Of course, you can remember that for 200 years, America never voted a black person. And for the first time, Barack Obama got the ticket as the president who was from a black origin or a black race, whichever one you want to call it. Anyways, let's go to Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris, also coincidentally in the same party as Barack Obama, is now standing as the candidate for the Democratic Party. Of course, we are aware that Joe Biden actually stepped down after his presidential debate, and then now Kamala Harris took over. Now, what are the key things we need to look at? What are the key things that compares or that give Kamala Harris the opportunity? Of course, number one, we understand that she is the vice president, the current vice president, or to Joe Biden. Of course, another thing that you might need to know is that 53%, a whooping 53% of the voting population in the United States are women. So that's one of the first pathways that's been giving Kamala Harris the momentum that she has gotten. 53% of the voting population in US are women. So in the case where before it was between two men, Trump and of course Biden, there was lackluster, basically, apathy for voting. So one thing about elections is, say for example, you have 10 persons who have the opportunity to vote. If 4 persons vote for a particular candidate and 3 persons vote for another particular candidate, and the other 3 refuse to vote, the person who has the 4 votes actually won. Of course, if you look at it in the whole scheme of things, you discover that 6 persons did not vote for him, but that doesn't count since they actually didn't come out. 3 people didn't actually come out to vote in the first place. So there was a little bit of an apathy from the female voting population. However, since Kamala Harris, who is also female by the way, because Democrats will tell you several things, but she's female by the way, then the voting population that included women have started showing up to support Kamala Harris' campaign. Of course, the second key thing that we must note is that there has been a running debate for the Americans saying that they have 2 old men who are actually going head and head against each other. Why should old people actually rule us? Well, you can say that in my country. Anyways, so Trump actually, of course, being in his 70s, and then of course Joe Biden in his early 80s, he appeared like as if there were two, it was between the devil and the blue sea, more or less. However, comes in Kamala Harris, which much younger than both Joe Biden and Trump, and then you see that the youth population or the young people in America are beginning to lean towards Kamala Harris simply because she's younger. Of course, the third point that you must need to note is the fact that the African American population, yes, take note of that, because she is black, the African American population they are beginning to show support for Kamala Harris. So they are beginning to put their tent behind her. So you have the place of the African American population, you have the case of the young population, you have the case of the women, the female population. So when you couple all these 3 things together, you begin to discover that Kamala Harris in recent weeks had gained momentum against Donald Trump. Of course, after the first presidential debate, it looked like as if it was going to be a landslide for Trump in the elections. However, within the short space of time, based on these 3 advantages I mentioned, Kamala Harris has been able to close the gap between herself and Trump. Of course, having to do all those different sentiments does not actually actuate to vote. There are several polls that are showing that Kamala Harris is gaining momentum and just alike. However, the major question is how much momentum can she gain before the final elections, where that's going to happen in November? We should have sufficient to be able to basically overthrow Trump. Of course, there's one other spanner in the wire in case of the fact that a lot of persons have seen Trump's presidency, a lot of persons have also seen Joe Biden's presidency, and of course one of them COVID, the other one inflation. People don't want to be part of it. Now they are trying to look for a lease of fresh air. However, Kamala Harris provides that opportunity of a lease of fresh air, somebody who has not contested before, somebody who looks new and everything. Of course, it will be weird, but the reality is that you should not forget the fact that she is currently the vice president in the United States. However, people have shallow memory when it comes to elections. So it means that she appears like a lease of fresh air. So when you combine all these different factors, you can see the reason why she's actually gaining momentum. However, there are some few things that we need to note. Number one is the fact that one of the reasons why Joe Biden won in 2020 was because of COVID. So Joe Biden won because of the way he sold the ticket of COVID to Americans. And of course, a lot of Americans, especially those in the blue wall, or you could call them not blue wall or not wall or whatever you call them, that is the New Yorks and the rest of like Pennsylvania, they bought this ideology because they felt Joe Biden showed concern with respect to COVID, whereas it appeared, or of course it's politics, it appeared like as if Trump did not show enough concern. However, when it comes to Kamala Harris, because of her more liberal nature, underline that word, her more liberal nature, there is a little bit of unwillingness to buy into her campaign, especially from Pennsylvania. Now, we understand that practically whoever that wins Pennsylvania, whether Trump or Harris, is likely going to get the tickets as the next president of the United States. So we don't know if perhaps maybe if Joe Biden comes into a campaign trail, it would further soften the minds of persons in Pennsylvania, and perhaps maybe she could get the sympathy votes. Or, like I mentioned the formula in the beginning, perhaps maybe Pennsylvania has lesser persons coming out to vote, and then maybe could also translate to her getting a victory, or maybe Trump getting a victory again. But the bottom line is, whoever that wins the 5-6 key battleground states, especially Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, would likely win the election. So we also know that a lot of Democrats who also actually stayed back because they were not feeling it with Joe Biden, are now gradually coming back on track. So they are gradually putting their support in. They're coming back on track to support the Kamala Harris campaign. And then it gradually looks like as if the momentum obviously is on Kamala Harris' side. But like I mentioned, only time will tell if this momentum gathered will be sufficient enough to translate to sufficient votes. I'm using sufficient twice already. We'll be able to give her what she needs, which is the 270 electoral college votes, for her to become the next president and perhaps the first female president in the United States. Stay tuned on this channel. We'll keep you more updates. We'll give you more updates as regards the US presidential elections. My name remains Oluwasegun Ajayi once again. Thank you for listening to Teptv.